Hi everybody. Hello, welcome to tonight's live stream. My name's Matt. Thank you all for being with us tonight. I'm joined by Riley here on this awesome Wednesday. Thanks, Riley.
Hey, nice to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's a big favour of us, and I'm super excited to have a bit of a chat with you tonight. And for everyone joining, I'm sure they'd love to know more about Unity game developing here in Adelaide. But not only that, but career pathways in the digital industry, guys. So I guess thank you, and everyone for tonight. If you would like to ask any questions for myself or Riley, please feel free to pop them in the Facebook chat and YouTube chat. We will do our best to get them answered. But without any further ado, Riley, let's get this started. So I guess let's take it back to the beginning. When did you graduate and what year?
So I graduated in 2017. Yes, probably. Pretty sure it was 2017. From the game design focused course that A gives. So the Bachelor of the game design focused one.
Yeah.
Mainly because I had a background in both programming and design, so I picked the more generalized one over the more specific one.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's when I graduated.
Cool, awesome. And where are you working at now?
I'm currently working at Foxie Games, a smallish mobile development company in Adelaide, housed out of Games Plus. We have 20-ish employees working on a variety of independent IP mobile games.
Cool, nice. 20 employees, nice little group there. And your job role specifically?
I believe it's just a very general designer, so I'm just a games designer. Primarily, I'm doing systems programming, UI programming, but I'm involved in most of the design process for the game.
Yeah, cool. And expanding on what you do with your role, I guess let's take it bit by bit because I'm still learning myself. So if you'd like to take us a little bit through each step of your role and what that entails.
Yeah, so at Foxy, we don't have incredibly defined roles a lot of the time. It's more about working out what needs to be done and divvying them up in the team depending on whose skills suit the area. So a lot of what I cover is programming backend for systems or UI. So if we're implementing a new type of anything, a new type of mini game, a new type of like combat, a new character, all of those sort of things I may help on. I do a lot of the code for UI. So making sure it looks pretty and functions and shows the right information at the right time. I also tend to take charge of our community feedback. So most days I am going through user reviews and emails that have been brought forward to us either from another team member or just our inbox. Looking for bugs to either fix myself or show to a team member who I think will do better at fixing it. And then beyond that, there's a lot of just having meetings about the future of the game and trying to give my input as someone who's done design training. Because I think currently on our team, I'm the only one that is a trained designer. We have everyone else is trained in programming, which doesn't mean their opinions are wrong, obviously, but it means sometimes I see things in a different light.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So with the user reviews, they give us a little bit of a taste. Are they generally quite polite or do you get some quite harsh ones at times?
Yeah, honestly, most people are polite. I think a lot of people don't bother leaving text reviews. It's only about a quarter of our reviews actually have text on them. Most people just give it an amount of stars and call it a day. So either most people are being super polite and just saying they really like the game. Some people report bugs through user reviews, so they'll be saying the game is crashing for them or something, and we do our best to communicate with them, which is not easy through user reviews because we try and direct them very quickly to other means. And yeah, I mean, occasionally some people are rude. To be honest, most of the people that are rude are not even rude about our game. They're just
Yeah,
posting something
yeah,
rude
yeah,
because it's an online forum. And you can report those to Google or Apple, and they'll decide if they're actually
yeah. Of
super bad
course.
or not.
Yeah,
But yeah, overall, it's part of the process I like doing. We see quite a big jump in reviews that are replied to. I think are on average 1 star higher than not replied to. So
yeah,
it's a worthwhile part of the process.
yeah. And you said that you worked with mostly programmers. Was
hmm
that so? Your team, I guess, at Foxy Game, you said you've got about 20, 23 staff members. How many of those
Yeah.
are programmers to artists?
So we're most of our 3D art is brought in from contractors outside of the company.
Yep.
So we have a couple 2D artists on staff which do all of our UI and that sort of thing. And we have, I think, one person who can do some animating, but for the most part, yeah, all of our art is external. So
Yeah.
we're split between uh, probably 90% programmers, and then we have a couple
Yeah.
project managers and our head and
Yeah.
things like that.
Is it nice working with that many programmers, like bouncing off each other, learning?
Yeah, it's definitely nice for uh, yeah, for being able to get solutions to things, having a wide net of people with ideas on how to fix problems and things like that.
Yeah.
Because our company is split into kind of smaller teams that are working on each game, it's quite a small group that we're working with anyway, so you don't really have a lot of the baggage or issues that can come with, say, if all 20 people were on one game. That's obviously a lot
Yeah.
bigger of a management job.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and there's obviously some inherent benefits to having artists in staff, just being able to talk to them and give them feedback. But nowadays, it's pretty easy to do remote work. I mean, we're all doing remote work right now
Yeah.
for the most part. Um, so it's kind of good proof that you can just get good back and forth communication without necessarily needing to be in person all the time.
Yeah. Cool. And looking, I guess, further into it for your role, what sort of software are you using at the moment?
So we make games in Unity, as for the most part, that's the easier path to mobile game development, um, with Unreal specializing more in the higher end as a pretty big generalization.
Yeah.
We use the typical code editor that comes with Unity that I should definitely know the name of, Visual Studio. We use Visual Studio primarily. I actually use a different code editor called Writer, which I prefer. It's more of just a personal preference thing over anything else.
Yeah.
We use Git for source management. We use a website called Monday for project management, which is just kind of your normal assigning tasks.
Yeah.
Um, we use Dropbox for file management. I think that's mainly it. I'm sure like other people use Photoshop and the
Yeah.
more art heavy things, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really need to touch that very often.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Awesome. So
Mm.
we've got our first question of the night. So I'll pop
hmm
that one up on screen for us to have a bit of a look at. So a bit of a famous name here in the AIE world, for those that
hmm
recognise it. Jessica Bull, do you work with your own IP at Foxy or deal with clients? Or do you
We
deal with
work
clients,
with
I should say?
our own IP. At least as far as I'm aware, all of the games we've made are our IP fully. So they're ideas that I typically came up with by our studio head and probably some of the lead design team, where they're especially looking for what they consider to be gaps in the market and areas where our style of games could fit well. So
Yeah.
they'll look at those and we'll work on those. So unlike some other companies around, we specialize trying to keep our own ideas instead of doing partnerships with other companies and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. And Jess goes on to say, if it is your own IP, how do you come up with the ideas? Or if you deal with clients, how do you pick what you make?
Yeah, so a large part of what we do is we're looking for gaps in the market where we consider our style of game fits well, which is a 3D role play sort of idea. It's vague-ish, but if you look at all of our games, you can kind of see they have some overlapping systems. So we're looking for ideas where we can take our expertise and apply that. So a lot of it might be looking on the App Store, and I mean, Horse Riding Tales is our biggest product, and that's kind of just like, well, we know there's a market for games about horse riding, horse taming, and all of those things. It's existed for a long time.
Yeah.
There were games on like the PlayStation 2 that were very big and things like that. But
Yeah.
at the time, there wasn't a lot on the App Store, so we realized that, designed it, pushed it, and now I think there's some more. I believe Ubisoft may have a one, so there's some bigger competitors in play. But at the time, it was we considered it a good idea to do because there was very little competition in the market at that point.
Yeah.
And that worked out really well for us. It's still a very popular game.
Yeah. Yeah, cool, awesome. So, in speaking of some of your work, what I'll do is we'll quickly let some of the viewers have a bit of a look at this. So this is, or if you'd like, actually, you're going to explain this better than I, Riley. So if you'd like to talk about what we're currently having a look at on screen, that'd be great.
So I believe, this would be the tutorial of our game as it is currently. So it's a basic, it's essentially a 3D combat survivalish style game. So you're collecting wolves, raising your den's power, leveling them up, and getting to kind of exist in this world. I think currently in this part of the tutorial, you're fighting an enemy clan to kind of take control of their territory. So this is the very basics of what we have at the very start of our game. And then there's a pretty big focus on PvP as well. So we have a variety of ways that players can interact with that. And that's kind of the very general overview of what Wolf Tales is, with a lot more, I guess, focus on existing in the world and giving players things to do. We're always looking for ways to let the players enjoy roleplay or ways to interact with the world that they may find interesting. So it's a lot of MMO light elements or RPG light elements, because obviously with a smaller team and online all the time, you can't make your game Skyrim or World of Warcraft, but there's a lot of lessons you can learn from those about why they do things, which we try to take into our consideration. And also we have, unlike a lot of these games that exist, we have a story that goes through. So that was one of the things I know in our initial pitch that we're trying to push hard, is that we have an interesting story for players to interact with and engage, and they get to see how it changes and things like that.
Yeah, cool. And your role specifically in this game, what did you take care of on the programming?
There's a fair few systems that I've built myself. I did a lot of the den component. So at some point in the video, you'll probably see that you return to your den, which is where your other allied animals live, kind of your AI ones that you get to switch between, and you get to level them up and change them and things like that.
Yeah, cool.
I helped work on the localization for our game. So this is that was the breeding system, which you could briefly see, where you can combine two animals to get a third animal that's hopefully a higher level and things like that.
I just want to jump in there for a second. For those viewers that might not know, what's localization?
So localization is getting your game essentially translated. There's typically a little bit more to it. It can cover, it's not always just words. Sometimes signs will need to be different for different regions of the world or things like that. Quite a difficult thing for an indie developer to do, Currently, we are focused on just having as much of our text Google translated as we can. So it's not a perfect localization system, but we're attempting to get make the games as accessible as possible. And the more successful our game is, then we can consider like natively localized text. But obviously that takes a lot of systems to create. You don't just want to go retype out every piece of text in your game, otherwise you're never going to have it done. So the back-end system that we have to manage it now can manage Google Translate or text that we have provided it. And it's quite an important thing. One of our biggest player base areas is Russia, and they're very passionate about having like Russian text. A lot of the people over there do not read English, which is fair enough. So it definitely can be a huge thing, especially if you're designing for mobile and you're not a text-heavy game. If you're some sort of, I don't know, match 3 or something, we'll say, like if you've only got 2,000 pieces of text in your game, you can spend the money and do it. We have a lot of randomly generated text and like story and things like that, so there's quite a lot in our game. But
cool, nice. So we do have another viewer question, and this one I've pre-read, and I'm not gonna lie, I love it. I'll whip that one off the screen. What type of games would you wish to work on in the future that may differ from your other projects? So full creativity here, Riley.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up giving quite a boring answer, which is I'm not actually that fussed about what I work on. I really enjoy the creative process of video game making. I'm not necessarily always the ideas man. But I mean, there's definitely some sort of games that I'd love to work on. I mean, I'd love to be able to work on something that's more couch co-op-y, some sort of like really just enjoyable fun game for friends to play. It's something that me and my friends like made one at one point as just kind of, you know, a fun project. But I love those sort of things. Games that are really mechanically focused I find enjoyable. I also imagine it will be quite entertaining to make some sort of big daunting story game, but you know, those are, then you get the position of I'm one man in 100 teams, so it's like I truly don't know what that process would be like compared to what it is now. But yeah, I quite enjoy helping other people make their game. So
just work as a team.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that. So I've got one more follow-up question from Alfiro. I do apologise if I pronounce that wrong. But do you guys reuse scrapped ideas?
I mean, I'm sure we do. I suppose you don't see as much what's scrapped in other projects, but in terms of, say, what's scrapped in our game, there's very few ideas that are scrapped in the sense that we're just like, this idea is completely useless, let's get rid of it. So a lot of the time, if an idea is scrapped, it's half prototyped, or we looked at it and went, that's a cool idea, it would take us 4 months to implement, we're not going to do it. But those ideas are always kind of written down somewhere. We're planning an update for our game where we're adding world events, which are, you know, you walk around and there might be a boss and a bunch of people can fight it on a very general level. So it's like those, that idea was floated in the first week of designing the game, but we didn't have time to implement it, and now we're coming back to it. So you could argue that's a scrapped idea. But for the most part, we do kind of operate with the no idea is a bad idea type of thing. It's more just, is the time to implement it worth doing, and does it enhance the core loop of like what players want to be doing? And occasionally those ideas go back and forth to other games. Wolf Tales added PvP before Dino Tamers did, which is another one of our company's games, and that whilst I believe they started working on PvP while we were working on it, I'm sure some of the ideas that we had explored like helped cross-pollinate over there and things like that.
Oh, cool, awesome. And what sparked your interest in the game industry? I guess was it a young age light bulb moment, or was it a stumble upon it?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I just always kind of vaguely played games. So I was never in, hugely playing them every day or anything, but I definitely really enjoyed them. And then I think when I was just a teenager, I realized that someone had to make games, which seemed cool.
Yeah.
I gave it a little bit of a go as a kid, but I lived on a farm with no internet, so it was like I got to do a little bit at school sometimes, but not much else.
Yeah.
And then I was doing a software engineering course in programming, and I wasn't minding that, but at some point, one of my friends who was at AAE was like, look at this course that you could be doing, and I seemed to line up a lot more with what I was interested in overall.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd go give that a go and started really enjoying it. I was never really diehard set on making games, but it's the right amount of creativity for me because I'm awful at 3D art or 2D art, but I enjoy being creative, so it works quite well for that.
Yeah, well, one of my questions actually I was going to ask a bit later on, but we'll bring it up now, is if, for those watching out there, if they're not necessarily gifted at art, what experience have you seen in terms of, are those students able to make it into the industry, or is there a huge entry to barrier if you just cannot, or you don't have the
No, there
skills to start
definitely
with?
is. Like, I joke saying I'm bad at art, but art is all practice and no... like, anyone who says they're naturally gifted at art, that probably means they actually just drew a lot as a kid and practice.
Yeah.
Obviously, some people will find it easier than others. That's inherently how humans work, but it's a practice thing. If you're specifically looking to go into 3D or 2D art, AA is a pretty decent way to go, or any kind of entry-level art course. There's quite a lot around. Even just giving it a go yourself. It's a daunting thing to start, so is programming, so is game design, but most creative-ish careers are. Art, you kind of have a little bit of the benefit of it's easier to just doodle at home when you're in a downtime compared to programming, where sometimes it's harder to just program a really small contained thing until you're used to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think just practice is all you need. And I know plenty of people that walked into an AAE course without doing too much previously.
Yeah.
I got into AAE where I talked about all of the work that I'd done in high school in game design, but I didn't actually have any of those files anymore.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have much tangible proof that I could do it, but just being able to have that discussion and talk to them about what I had done, like, proved that I had, in a way.
Yeah. I think there's a really good question that I'd actually had kept for the end here, and I'll pick it up on the screen. So it is in regard to what we were just talking about a bit, so the portfolio. So back at AAE for a moment, do you remember what kind of things you had in your portfolio getting into AAE? I think you've just mostly answered that, but...
I mean, not a lot. So I talked a lot about the design that I'd done previously. I also had, from my software engineering degree that I was halfway through, so I did have a couple programming projects, so I could prove I was programming, but I wasn't going for a programming role. So and I had a piece of 3D art that I had done for a random uni course a while ago. But yeah, it was kind of just a collection of things that I had done over the years to show that I had put effort in, I suppose, that I'd tried.
Yeah. And for those
because
watching...
I think...
Oh, sorry, you go. You finish up.
I was just going to say, because I think at the end of the day, you're mainly looking at people that are going to put in the work. It's really easy to say you're interested in games. Games are interesting, and game design is interesting too, but you have to have some level of understanding of what the reality of that is. So even just putting your first step forward, doing the first set of Unity tutorials or some 3D modeling tutorial or something, that shows you've at least started.
Yeah. That is a common question that I do get asked when I go out to schools and speak with students. They always say, what are you looking for in a portfolio? How do I make one? And it's pretty simple process. So if you want to download tutorials, guys, screenshot coding. I saw a fantastic piece the other day. A student who was applying for AA had drawn up a huge talent tree for a game, and he went into quite some depth about that. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. I was like, that's exactly what we're looking for, that sort of creativity, that sort of flair, but not necessarily having it refined, polished in the most amazing pieces. So it just needs to show a bit of interest and a bit of passion there for those wondering what goes into a portfolio. So good to hear from someone who has made it into the industry and experienced with putting together a portfolio. Perfect. So I guess let's pull it a little bit back again. We are coming close to finishing, but I'll ask one more question. So how has AI helped you in getting where you want today? Or what skills did AI provide you with, and have they been useful within the industry?
Well, I mean, I definitely wouldn't have a job in the games industry. If I had have stuck with UniSA, I would like to think that I would have at least graduated and got a job. But AA has definitely helped with being more creative and being more, I suppose, assertive and being able to communicate those decisions. Because there's so much group work, that's really beneficial to learning how to work in teams. All game designers working in teams. And that's really helped me learn to find my voice in communicating with them. I was very supported by my teachers through like good projects and bad projects, anything that went wrong or right, and it really helped me work out what I wanted to do. I got to try a bunch of different, especially doing the design course, you kind of get to try a little bit of every type of game design. So I got to find what I was interested in and what I wasn't interested in. I know that I don't really have the mind for level design, for example. And whilst it is a skill that I could learn, it's let me try that to know, to I suppose know what to aim for. And all of those sort of things really just helped refine what I do. And I'm a couple years into doing this. I'm still very early on. I could end up a senior level designer in 10 years. I don't know. But
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for answering those questions. We have almost hit the half an hour mark. I'm just going to take 2 seconds out now to just quickly jump on here and show everybody. We've got some really exciting stuff coming up at AIE over the next few weeks, and especially this month. So if anyone would like, head to our website. On the left-hand side here, you go Showcase. We've got events and we've got workshops coming up. So the events, let's talk about these for a second. We've got Information Evening coming up on the 16th, guys, for those who want to know more information about each course. Parents, teachers, students, whoever would like to come along, please do, and we'll have our teachers been giving a presentation on each of the streams. Industry Experience Day coming up on the 30th. That's a fantastic way to get some hands-on experience as well. So for any student out there thinking, I love design, I love programming, I love art, I love all of it, Industry Experience Day, we'll run an hour of a workshop through each stream so you can better understand a bit more about, okay, which is the right pathway for me. So we've got those coming up, and then next week, guys, we are at PAX. So PAX, unfortunately, due to COVID, hasn't been able to run as a physical event, so they are going to be doing it online. And in our PAX booth, we will be having a live stream with Benjamin Retter, who has created some artwork for Dota 2, which is super exciting, and I can't wait to talk with Benjamin as well about that. So a lot happening this month, guys. Do not miss out. Repeat, do not miss out. So I guess thank you all so much for being with us tonight. It really was a pleasure, Riley, and I'm sure AIE and the fans out there of yours are cheering and saying thank you as well. So is there any final bit you would like to mention before we conclude?
Yeah, I don't think so. Just if you're interested in doing this, just keep having a go. Like almost any career, really, it is hard to break into, definitely, but if you're passionate about it and you work hard, you normally can get there. So it's definitely a good thing. And I know AE is a big supporter of like older students getting in as well. So if anyone's
Yeah.
watching and they're not someone in high school, you definitely still can consider doing a course.
Yeah, definitely. Here in Adelaide, we've got a fair few mature age students, so very exciting. Well, thank you again, Riley. Thank you all for joining tonight. I wish you a happy week, and I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of you out at our events coming up. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.